The stars dimmed. Not suddenly, not violently, but with the slow, deliberate certainty of candles being pinched out by unseen fingers. One by one, the constellations that had guided explorers, poets, and wanderers for millennia flickered, sputtered, and surrendered to the deepening dark. Cale felt the change before he saw it. A pressure behind his eyes, a tightening in his chest. A sensation like the universe itself had inhaled sharply and forgotten how to exhale. He stood on the edge of the celestial expanse, a shimmering platform of fractured starlight suspended above a void so deep it seemed to swallow thought itself. The ember's faint glow pulsed in his palm, weaker than he had ever seen it. Behind him, the Rememberer materialized in a swirl of drifting stardust. Its form shifted constantly, sometimes a humanoid silhouette, sometimes a constellation, sometimes a storm of memories given shape. Its voice was soft, but the words carried the weight of galaxies. "It wakes." Kyle didn't turn. His gaze stayed fixed on the horizon of space, where the last remaining stars trembled like frightened animals. "The Watcher," he said. The Rememberer's form flickered, a constellation collapsing into a silhouette. The first memory, the one even I feared to recall. A tremor rippled across the void, not sound, not light, something older. Cale swallowed. "Then we're out of time." The Rememberer drifted closer, its presence warm and cold at once. "You could still walk away?" Cale laughed, a tired, humorless sound. "I tried that once. The universe followed me anyway." Another tremor. Stronger. The platform beneath them shuddered. The Rememberer whispered, "Kyle, it sees us." Kyle finally turned. His eyes were tired, but steady. "Good. I'm done hiding." The Rememberer tilted its head. "You are afraid." "Of course I'm afraid," Cale said. "Only idiots and gods pretend they aren't." The Rememberer's voice softened. "You are neither." Kyle smirked. "Then I guess I'm in trouble." A third tremor rolled through the void, this one accompanied by a low, resonant hum that vibrated through Cale's bones. The stars dimmed further, their light draining toward a single point in the distance. The Rememberer's form brightened in alarm. "It is opening its eyes." Cale tightened his grip on the ember. "Then let's make sure it sees us clearly." The Rememberer hesitated. "Cale, if the Watcher truly awakens, everything we've done, everything you've sacrificed, may be undone." Cale stepped forward toward the growing darkness. "Then we'll do it again." The Rememberer floated beside him. "You speak as though you are infinite." Kyle shook his head. "No, I speak as someone who refuses to quit." The void pulsed. A whisper, ancient, vast, and cold, brushed against Cale's mind. "I see you." Cale froze. The Rememberer's voice trembled. "It has begun." Kyle exhaled slowly. "Then so have we." He stepped into the dark, and the dark stepped back. The darkness did not move. It unfolded. Slowly, deliberately, like a colossal creature stretching after an eon of sleep. The void rippled outward in concentric waves, bending starlight, warping gravity, distorting the very idea of space. Cale felt the shift in his bones. The Rememberer felt it in its memories, and the universe felt it in its fear. A shape emerged, not a body, not a silhouette, but a presence. A density of awareness so ancient and vast that the surrounding darkness seemed to recoil from it. 2 points of light ignited within the void, not stars, not eyes. Something older. Kyle's breath caught. "It's huge." The Rememberer's voice was barely a whisper. "It is not size you perceive. It is significance. The presence spoke, not with sound, not with language, with memory. A voice rolled across the cosmos, deep and resonant, like a mountain remembering its birth. You have disturbed the cycle. Kyle staggered backward, clutching the ember. It's speaking to us. The rememberer drifted forward, its form brightening. Watcher. We seek balance. The Watcher's gaze, if it could be called that, swept across them. Kyle felt it like a cold wind through his soul. You seek defiance. Kyle forced himself to stand tall. We saved the universe. The Watcher's presence pulsed, a slow, ancient heartbeat. You prolonged its suffering. Kale's jaw tightened. You call existence suffering? All things suffer when they are forced to continue beyond their purpose. The Rememberer's form flickered. You speak of entropy. I speak of mercy. Kale stepped forward, anger rising. Mercy! You're unraveling reality. The Watcher's voice deepened, vibrating through the void. Reality is a wound. I am the salve. Kale shook his head. You're ending everything. I am releasing everything. The Rememberer floated between them. Watcher, why now? Why awaken after so long? The Watcher's eyes dimmed, then brightened again. Because the spark was rekindled. Kyle froze. The ember. The universe was meant to fade. You reignited it. You defied the cycle. Kale's voice softened. We gave it a second chance. You gave it a second burden. The Rememberer whispered. Kale, it knows everything. Kale swallowed. Then it knows we won't back down. The Watcher's presence expanded, filling the void with a pressure that made Kyle's knees buckle. You misunderstand. I do not seek battle. Kale steadied himself. Then what do you want? The Watcher's voice lowered, almost gentle. I want you to understand. The void shifted. A ripple of memory washed over Kyle. Visions of dying stars, collapsing civilizations, forgotten worlds drifting into silence. He saw the universe's long, slow decline, the exhaustion of creation, the quiet plea of existence longing for rest. Kale gasped, clutching his head. Stop! Stop! The Rememberer reached for him, its form shimmering. Watcher, enough! The visions faded. Kyle fell to one knee, panting. You showed me the end. I showed you the truth. Kale looked up, eyes burning. The universe doesn't want to die. The universe does not want. It endures, and endurance is not living. The Rememberer's voice trembled. Watcher, what do you intend to do? The Watcher's eyes dimmed to embers. I intend to finish what entropy began. Kale rose slowly. Not while I'm still breathing. The Watcher regarded him with ancient calm. Then breathe carefully, human. Your defiance is noted. Kyle stepped forward, fire in his voice. You're not the only one who remembers. The Watcher's presence pulsed. No, but I am the one who decides what is worth remembering. The Rememberer flared with sudden anger, a rare, startling sight. Watcher, you overstep. I fulfill my purpose. Kale raised the ember, its faint glow flickering defiantly. And I fulfill mine. The Watcher's eyes narrowed. Then let us see whose purpose endures. The void trembled. The stars dimmed further, and the long night deepened. The first crack appeared without sound. A thin, jagged line tore across the fabric of the sky. Not a beam of light, not a streak of energy, but a fracture. as though the universe were made of glass and something enormous had struck it from the outside. Kyle froze. The Rememberer drifted backward, its form flickering violently. "No! No! 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 This is too soon!" Kale shielded his eyes as the crack widened, branching into a web of shimmering fissures. "What's happening?" The Rememberer's voice trembled, a rare, unsettling thing. "The Watcher is unraveling the final layer, the boundary between memory and reality." Kyle stared upward. "It's breaking the universe." "Not breaking," the Rememberer whispered. "Releasing." The Watcher's voice rolled across the void, deep and resonant. All things returned to silence. Kyle shouted into the dark. "You call this mercy?" The Watcher's presence pulsed, a slow, ancient heartbeat. "Mercy is the end of suffering." A second fracture split open, then a third. The sky above them resembled a shattered mirror, each shard reflecting a different version of reality. Worlds that never were, timelines that never happened, futures that had been erased. Kyle staggered as a wave of vertigo hit him. "I'm seeing everything." The Rememberer reached out, steadying him. "Do not look directly into the fractures. They show possibilities, not truths." Kyle tore his gaze away. "How do we stop it?" "You cannot," the Watcher said. "The cycle must complete." Kyle clenched his fists. "You keep saying cycle. What cycle?" The Watcher's eyes dimmed, then brightened again. "Creation, expansion, memory, decline, release." Kyle shook his head. "You're skipping the part where life matters." "Life matters only as long as it serves the whole." The Rememberer flared with sudden anger. "Watcher, you speak as though existence is a burden." "It is." Kyle stepped forward, fire in his voice. "To you." The Watcher's presence expanded, filling the void with a pressure that made Kale's knees buckle. "To all things. Even stars grow weary. Even gods." Kyle forced himself upright. "Then let them choose for themselves." The Watcher's voice lowered, almost gentle. "They already have. They chose to fade." Kyle's breath caught. "That's not true." "It is memory that clings, not life." The Rememberer's form dimmed. "Kyle, it speaks of me." Kale turned sharply. "What?" The Rememberer's voice was quiet. "I was created to preserve what mattered. But perhaps I preserved too much." The Watcher's presence pulsed. "You bound the universe to its past. You anchored it when it wished to drift. You denied it peace." The Rememberer recoiled. "I gave it continuity." "You gave it chains." Kale stepped between them. "Enough. You're twisting everything." The Watcher's gaze fell upon him. "Human, you carry the last spark of defiance, but even you feel the weight of memory." Kyle opened his mouth to argue, but stopped, because he did feel it. The ember in his hand pulsed weakly, as though exhausted. His own memories, battles fought, worlds saved, sacrifices made, pressed against him like stones in a river. The Rememberer whispered, "Kale, do not listen." Kale shook his head. "I'm not giving up." The Watcher's voice deepened. "You misunderstand. I do not seek your surrender. I seek your understanding." The fractures widened. From within them, shapes began to move. Kyle's eyes widened. "What? What is that?" The Rememberer's voice broke. "The Forgotten." Kyle stepped back. "Forgotten what?" "Forgotten timelines," the Rememberer said. "Forgotten lives. forgotten versions of everything that ever was or could have been. The Watcher's voice echoed. All that was erased now returns. Kyle stared in horror as the first of the Forgotten stepped through a fracture, a figure made of shimmering fragments, its form shifting between countless possibilities. It looked at Kale and spoke in a voice that was almost his own. You left us behind. Kale's heart stopped. The Rememberer whispered, Kale, do not engage. But Kale couldn't move. The Forgotten stepped closer, its face flickering between ages, expressions, scars that Kyle had never earned. You chose your path. We were the price. Kyle's voice cracked. I didn't know you existed. The Forgotten smiled sadly. Sorry isn't enough. The fractures pulsed. More figures emerged. Hundreds, thousands, millions. A storm of broken mirrors. Kyle whispered, This is impossible. The Watcher's voice rolled across the void. This is inevitability. The Rememberer floated beside Kale, its form trembling. The universe is collapsing under the weight of its own memory. Kyle raised the ember, its glow flickering defiantly. Then we hold it together. The Watcher's eyes narrowed. Then you will break. Kyle stepped forward, fire in his voice. Not today. The fractures exploded outward, and the battle for reality began. The fractures widened. What began as thin, shimmering cracks now tore open like wounds in the sky, spilling raw, unfiltered possibility into the void. Each fracture pulsed with a different color, some bright as newborn stars, others dark as collapsed timelines. Kale felt the air thicken, as though the universe itself were holding its breath. The Rememberer drifted backward, its form flickering erratically. This is wrong. This is all wrong. Kyle kept his eyes on the fractures. What's coming through? The Rememberer's voice was barely audible. Everything that was erased. A low hum filled the void, a chorus of voices layered atop one another, whispering, pleading, accusing. The sound grew louder, sharper, until Kale realized it wasn't sound at all. It was memory. The first figure stepped through the nearest fracture. It was humanoid, but only barely. Its body flickered between shapes, tall, short, scarred, unscarred, as though it couldn't decide which version of itself it wanted to be. Its face shifted constantly, a mosaic of possibilities. But its eyes were unmistakable. Kale's breath caught. That's me! The Rememberer reached out. Kale, don't! But Kale stepped forward. The forgotten Kale tilted its head, its voice a layered echo of countless versions of him. You left us behind. Kale swallowed hard. I didn't know you existed. The forgotten smiled, a sad, broken smile. We were the paths you didn't take, the choices you didn't make, the lives you abandoned. Kyle shook his head. I didn't abandon anything. I made the choices I had to. The Forgotten's form flickered violently. And we paid the price. More fractures split open, more figures emerged. A woman with Kale's eyes but a stranger's face. A child holding a broken ember, a warrior version of Kale covered in scars he had never earned. A version of him who had died young. A version who had never carried the ember at all. The Rememberer floated beside him, voice trembling. These are echoes, Kyle. They are not you. The forgotten Kale stepped closer. We are every you that could have been. Kale backed away. I can't fight you. The Forgotten's expression hardened. Then you will fall. The Watcher's voice rolled across the void, deep and resonant. All that was erased now demands recognition. Kyle shouted, You're using them. I am freeing them. The Rememberer flared with sudden anger. Watcher, this is cruelty. This is truth. The Forgotten surged forward. Kyle raised the ember instinctively. Its glow flared, pushing back the nearest echoes. But the ember's light sputtered, weakened by the sheer weight of the memories pressing against it. Kale gritted his teeth. "I can't hold them!" The Rememberer moved beside him, its form expanding into a shield of shimmering constellations. "Then we hold them together!" The Forgotten crashed against the shield, their voices rising in a chaotic chorus. "You chose wrong. You left us. We deserved to exist. You stole our futures. You stole our lives." Kale shouted over the noise, "I didn't choose to erase you!" The Forgotten Kyle's eyes burned with accusation. "But you did. Every choice erases 1,000 possibilities. Every path kills 1,000 selves." Kyle felt the words like knives. The Rememberer whispered, "Do not let them break you." Kyle's voice cracked. "They're not wrong." The Rememberer turned sharply. "Kale!" "They're not wrong!" Kale shouted. "Every time I chose to fight, to run, to save someone, I killed a version of me who chose differently." The Forgotten surged forward, emboldened by his doubt. The Rememberer's form flickered. "Kyle, listen to me. They are echoes, not lives. They are possibilities, not people." The Forgotten Kale snarled. "We are as real as you." Kale raised the ember again, its light flickering desperately. "I don't want to fight you." The Forgotten's voice dropped to a whisper. "But we want to fight you!" They attacked. Kale was thrown backward, tumbling across the fractured platform. The ember slipped from his grasp, skidding across the starlit surface. The Rememberer darted toward him. "Kyle!" Kale groaned, pushing himself upright. "I'm fine." He wasn't. The Forgotten swarmed around him, their forms shifting, merging, splitting. They moved like a storm of broken mirrors, each shard reflecting a different version of him. Kale reached for the ember, but a Forgotten hand grabbed his wrist. It was the child. Her eyes were hollow. "Why didn't you choose me?" Kyle froze. The Rememberer shouted, "Kyle, look away!" But he couldn't. The child's voice trembled. "I could have lived. I could have been real." Kyle whispered, "I'm sorry." The child's form flickered, then twisted into something sharp and monstrous. "Sorry isn't enough." She lunged. Kyle braced for impact, but a burst of golden light exploded between them. The Rememberer hovered above him, its form blazing with fury. "Enough!" it roared, a sound that shook the fractures themselves. The Forgotten recoiled. The Rememberer turned to Kyle, its voice softer. "You cannot face them with guilt, only with truth." Kale picked up the ember, its glow steadier now. "Then let's give them truth." The Forgotten screamed, a sound of 1,000 lives demanding justice. Kyle stood tall. The Rememberer rose beside him, and together they charged into the storm. The Forgotten surged like a tidal wave of fractured selves. Kyle braced himself as the first impact hit, a shockwave of memory, possibility, and accusation. The ember flared in his hand, its light pushing back the nearest echoes, but only barely. The glow sputtered, flickering like a candle in a storm. The Rememberer expanded its form, constellations swirling around it like a shield. "Hold your ground!" Kyle gritted his teeth. "I'm trying!" The Forgotten screamed. 1,000 voices layered atop one another, each one a version of Kale or someone he had known, someone he had saved, someone he had failed. "You chose wrong. You left us behind. We deserved to exist. You stole our futures. You stole our lives." Kale swung the ember in a wide arc. A burst of golden fire erupted, scattering the nearest echoes, but the fire dimmed quickly, swallowed by the sheer weight of the Forgotten pressing in. Kale stumbled backward. "There's too many!" The Rememberer's voice boomed, louder than Kale had ever heard it. "Then we make meaning stronger than memory!" The Forgotten Kale, the first echo that had emerged, stepped forward, its form stabilizing into something more solid, more real. "You can't fight us, Kyle. We are you." Kyle steadied his breathing. "No, you're what I could have been." The Forgotten Kyle's eyes burned. "And that makes us real." Kale shook his head. "It makes you possible, not actual." The Forgotten snarled. "You think that matters?" Kale raised the ember. "It matters to me." The Forgotten lunged. Kale met the attack head-on, the ember clashing against a blade of shimmering potential. Sparks of memory flew in all directions. Flashes of lives Kale had never lived. A version of him as a farmer. A version as a soldier who died young. A version who never left Earth. A version who became a tyrant. A version who never found the ember. A version who found it too late. Each memory hit Kale like a punch to the chest. He staggered. "Stop showing me this." The Forgotten Kyle pressed forward. "You need to see what you cost us." Kyle's voice cracked. "I didn't choose to erase you." "Every choice erases something." The Rememberer intervened, its form slamming into the Forgotten Kale with a burst of starlight. "Enough!" The Forgotten recoiled, hissing. The Rememberer turned to Kale, its voice urgent. "You cannot fight them with guilt, only with truth." Kale wiped blood from his lip, or something like blood. "Then tell me the truth." The Rememberer hesitated. "The truth is, they are not lives. They are echoes, fragments, possibilities that never solidified." Kale looked at the Forgotten, at the child, the warrior, the countless versions of himself. "They feel real." "They feel," the Rememberer said gently, "because you feel." Kale clenched his fists. "Then how do I fight them?" The Rememberer's form brightened. "By remembering who you are." The Forgotten screamed again, surging forward in a wave of shimmering forms. Kale raised the ember, its light flaring brighter than before. "I am Kale, the last bearer, the one who chose." The Forgotten recoiled slightly. Kyle stepped forward. "I didn't erase you. I lived my life. I made my choices. And I won't apologize for existing." The Forgotten Kyle snarled. "Then we will take your existence." The battle erupted again. Kale fought with renewed strength, each swing of the ember stabilizing fragments of reality. The Rememberer fought beside him, weaving memory into shields and spears of starlight. But the Forgotten were endless. Every time Kale struck one down, two more emerged from the fractures. Every time the Rememberer sealed a crack, another split open. Kale shouted over the chaos, "We can't win like this!" The Rememberer's voice was strained. "We are not meant to win. We are meant to endure." Kyle blocked an attack from a version of himself who wielded a blade of pure possibility. "That's not good enough." The Rememberer's form flickered. "Then we must change the meaning of the battle." Kale ducked under a strike, countering with a burst of ember fire. "How?" The Rememberer's eyes, if they could be called that, glowed with sudden clarity. "By remembering that meaning is stronger than potential." Kyle frowned. "What does that—" A forgotten version of him tackled him from behind, slamming him into the ground. Kyle rolled, kicking the echo away. The Rememberer continued, its voice rising above the chaos. "Potential is infinite, but meaning is chosen." Kyle rose to his feet, panting. "So what do we choose?" The Rememberer extended a hand toward him. "You choose yourself." Kyle hesitated, then placed his hand in the Rememberer's. A surge of warmth flowed through him. Memories of his own life, not the lives he could have lived. His first breath, his first fear, his first victory, his first loss. The moment he found the ember, the moment he saved the forge, the moment he chose to fight again. Kale gasped. "This is me." The Rememberer nodded. "Yes, and that is enough." Kale's eyes burned with renewed fire. "Then let's show them who I am." He raised the ember. It blazed. Golden fire erupted outward, sweeping across the battlefield. The Forgotten shrieked as the light washed over them, not destroying them, but dissolving them gently, returning them to the fractures from which they came. The Forgotten Kale reached out, its form unraveling. "We could have been—" Kyle whispered, "I know." The echo dissolved into light. The fractures dimmed. The battlefield fell silent. Kyle lowered the ember, breathing hard. "Is it over?" The Rememberer drifted beside him, its form dimming. No, this was only the beginning. Kyle looked up at the sky, at the fractures still pulsing faintly. What comes next? The Rememberer's voice was heavy. "The Watcher." Kyle tightened his grip on the ember. "Then let's finish this." The battlefield fell silent. The last echoes of the Forgotten dissolved into shimmering dust, drifting back into the fractures like fireflies returning to their nest. The fractures themselves pulsed faintly, as though waiting or listening. Kyle stood in the center of the star-lit platform, chest heaving, the ember dim but steady in his hand. Sweat, or something like sweat, dripped down his brow. His arms trembled from the strain of fighting 1,000 versions of himself. The Rememberer hovered beside him, its form flickering with exhaustion. "You did well." Kale wiped his mouth. "We did well." The Rememberer's voice softened. "You chose yourself. That is no small thing." Kale looked up at the fractured sky. "Then why does it feel like nothing changed?" The Rememberer hesitated. "Because the battle was never the end." A low hum rolled across the void. The fractures brightened. The Watcher awakened. Its presence expanded, filling the cosmos with a pressure that made Kyle's bones ache. The darkness around it rippled like a living thing, bending reality with every pulse. Two ancient eyes, older than stars, older than memory, fixed on Kale. "You have resisted inevitability." Kyle tightened his grip on the ember. "I resisted you." The Watcher's voice deepened. "You resisted truth." The Rememberer floated forward, its form brightening. "Watcher, enough. You have made your point." The Watcher's gaze shifted to the Rememberer. "You speak as though you are equal to me." The Rememberer's voice trembled. "I speak as one who remembers what you have forgotten." A pulse of darkness rippled outward. "I forget nothing." Kyle stepped between them. "Then explain this. Why unleash the Forgotten? Why tear open the sky?" The Watcher's presence pressed down on him like a mountain. "To show you the burden of memory." Kale's jaw tightened. "I already know the burden." "No. You know guilt. You know regret. But you do not know the weight of all things." The Rememberer's form flickered. "Watcher, he carries enough." "He carries nothing." Kyle's eyes narrowed. "Say that again." The Watcher's voice rolled like thunder. "You carry only your own life. I carry every life, every choice, every failure, every ending. I am the memory of the universe. I am the one who remembers when all else forgets." The Rememberer flared with sudden anger. "No, that is my purpose." The Watcher turned slowly. "You are a fragment of me, a splinter, a mistake." The Rememberer recoiled as though struck. Kyle stepped forward. "Don't talk to them like that." The Watcher's gaze fell upon him. "You defend the one who bound the universe to its suffering." Kyle shook his head. "The Rememberer preserved what mattered." "The Rememberer preserved everything." The Rememberer's voice cracked. I only wanted to help." The Watcher's presence darkened. "You wanted to cling. You wanted to hold. You wanted to keep the universe from ending. That is not mercy. That is fear." Kyle raised the ember. "You're twisting this." The Watcher's voice softened, disturbingly gentle. "Human, you cling to life because you fear death. The Rememberer clings to memory because it fears oblivion. But I fear nothing. I release." Kyle spat on the ground. "You destroy. I free." The Rememberer drifted closer to Kale, its voice trembling. "Kale, I am not what it says." Kale placed a hand on the Rememberer's shifting shoulder. "I know." The Watcher's eyes dimmed, then brightened again. "You stand between gods, human. Why?" Kale met its gaze without flinching. "Because someone has to." The Watcher regarded him with ancient curiosity. "You are small, finite, temporary. Why fight for a universe that will forget you?" Kyle's voice was quiet, but steady. "Because I won't forget it." The Watcher paused. For the first time, it seemed uncertain. The Rememberer whispered, "Kale, it listens." Kyle stepped forward. "You think ending everything is mercy. But mercy isn't erasing pain. It's helping someone live through it." The Watcher's presence pulsed. "You misunderstand mercy." Kyle shook his head. "No, you misunderstand life." The Watcher's voice deepened. "Then enlighten me." Kale took a breath. "Life isn't meant to be perfect. It's meant to be lived, with mistakes, with regrets, with memories that hurt and memories that heal. You want to end the universe because you think suffering makes it meaningless." He raised the ember. "But suffering is part of meaning." The Rememberer brightened. "Yes," Kyle continued, voice rising. "You think the universe wants to die, but you never asked it. You just assumed." The Watcher's presence trembled, a subtle shift, but noticeable. "The universe is tired." Kyle nodded. "So are we, but we keep going." The Watcher's voice softened. "Why?" Kyle smiled, a small, tired smile. "Because we choose to." Silence. The fractures dimmed slightly. The Rememberer whispered, "Kale, you're reaching it?" Kale stepped closer to the Watcher, unafraid. "You think you're the only one who remembers. But memory isn't a burden. It's a gift. It's what lets us grow. It's what lets us change." The Watcher's eyes narrowed. "Change leads to suffering." Kyle shook his head. "Change leads to meaning." The Watcher's presence pulsed again, this time with something like confusion. "Meaning?" Kyle nodded. "Yes, meaning. Something you've forgotten." The Rememberer drifted forward, its voice gentle. "Watcher, let us speak plainly." The Watcher turned its gaze. "Speak." The Rememberer's form steadied. "You are not the end. You are the beginning of the end. But endings are not always destruction. Sometimes they are transformation." Kyle added, "And sometimes they're choices." The Watcher's voice lowered. "Choices." Kale stepped forward until he stood directly before the ancient presence. "Yes, choices. and now it's time for mine. The Watcher regarded him with ancient, unreadable eyes. Then choose, human. Choose the fate of all things. The fractures brightened. The universe held its breath. And Kale prepared to decide. The universe held its breath. The fractures in the sky pulsed like open wounds, each one glowing with the light of 1,000 possible futures. The Watcher loomed above them, its presence vast and ancient, a shadow cast across the cosmos. The Rememberer hovered beside Kale, its form flickering with exhaustion and fear. Kale stood between them, a single human, battered, trembling, clutching a fading ember. And yet in this moment, he was the axis on which everything turned. The Watcher's voice rolled across the void, deep and resonant. Choose, human. Choose the fate of all things. Kale swallowed hard. I don't even know what that means. The Watcher extended a hand of shadow. The fractures brightened. Then I will show you. The void shifted. A ripple of memory washed over Kale. Not visions this time, but realities, layered atop one another like pages in a book. 3 paths unfolded before him. A universe dimming gently, peacefully. Stars fading like candles at the end of a long night. Worlds drifting into silence. Life dissolving into a warm, painless oblivion. Kale felt a strange calm wash over him. The Watcher's voice softened. Release, mercy, the end of suffering. Kale whispered, It's peaceful. The Rememberer recoiled. It is erasure. The Watcher replied, It is rest. Kyle's heart ached. It feels like letting go. The vision shifted. Worlds were born. Civilizations rose, stars ignited. Then everything collapsed, only to begin again, over and over, endlessly. Kale felt dizzy watching it. The Watcher's voice darkened. Repetition, stagnation, a prison of infinite loops. The Rememberer shook its head. A chance to try again. Kyle frowned, but nothing changes. Nothing, the Watcher agreed, ever truly lives. The final vision unfolded. A universe that remembered everything, every life, every choice, every triumph, every failure. A universe that grew from its past instead of repeating it. A universe that carried its scars with pride. Kyle felt the weight of it, heavy but meaningful. The Watcher's voice was quiet. Continuance. A future shaped by memory. The Rememberer brightened. Meaning. Kyle whispered, This one feels real. The visions faded. Kyle stood once more on the fractured platform, the ember flickering weakly in his hand. The Watcher regarded him with ancient calm. Now you understand. Kyle exhaled shakily. I understand the options, not the consequences. The Watcher's presence pulsed. Then ask. Kale turned to the Rememberer. If I choose the quiet ending, what happens to you? The Rememberer's form dimmed. I cease. All memory ceases. Kale's throat tightened. And if I choose the eternal cycle? I become irrelevant, the Rememberer said. Memory resets. Nothing endures. Kale nodded slowly. And if I choose the burden of memory? The Rememberer's voice softened. Then I continue, and so does everything else. Kyle turned back to the Watcher. And you? The Watcher's eyes dimmed. I am the end. If you choose continuance, I end. Kyle blinked. You die? I release myself. The Rememberer whispered, Kyle, it is tired. Kyle stared at the Watcher, at the ancient presence that had terrified him, challenged him, forced him to confront the weight of existence. "You want to rest," Kyle said quietly. The Watcher did not deny it. "I have carried the universe's ending since the first star ignited. I am weary." Kale felt something unexpected, sympathy. "You're not a monster," he said. "You're exhausted." The Watcher's voice trembled, the faintest crack in its ancient calm. "Yes." The Rememberer drifted closer to Kale. "Kale, the choice is yours. But know this, whatever you choose for all things." Kale closed his eyes. He thought of the ember. He thought of the forge. He thought of the forgotten. He thought of every life he had touched, every sacrifice he had made, every moment that had brought him here. He thought of the universe, vast, flawed, beautiful. He opened his eyes. "I choose." Silence. The fractures dimmed. The Watcher leaned forward. "Speak." Kyle raised the ember. Its light flared, weak but steady. "I choose continuance." The Watcher's presence trembled. "You choose burden." Kyle nodded. "I choose meaning." The Rememberer brightened, its form stabilizing. "Kale," Kyle continued, voice steady. "I choose a universe that remembers, but isn't crushed by memory. A universe that grows, but doesn't repeat blindly. A universe that ends, but only when its story is complete." The Watcher bowed its head. "Then so it shall be." The fractures pulsed. The universe shifted. And Kyle felt the weight of his choice settle upon him like a mantle. The Rememberer whispered, "Kyle, are you ready?" Kyle took a breath. "No." He lifted the ember. "But I'll do it anyway." The moment Kyle spoke his choice, the universe reacted. The fractures in the sky pulsed violently, their jagged edges glowing with blinding light. The void trembled beneath Kale's feet, as though reality itself were shifting, rearranging, preparing for what came next. The Watcher's presence expanded, filling the cosmos with a pressure so immense Kale felt his bones vibrate. The Rememberer hovered beside him, its form flickering between brilliance and collapse. Kale tightened his grip on the ember. "What happens now?" The Watcher's voice rolled across the void, deep and resonant. "Now, human, you bear the consequence of your choice." Kyle swallowed. "Which is?" The Watcher extended a hand of shadow, vast, ancient, trembling with the weight of eons. "You will carry the burden of memory." The Rememberer drifted forward, extending a hand of light, warm, gentle, shimmering with the glow of 1,000 remembered lives. "Kyle," it whispered, "you do not have to do this alone." Kale looked between them, the end and the memory, the shadow and the light, the past and the future. He took a breath. "Then let's do it together." He reached out and placed one hand in the Watcher's shadow, the other in the Rememberer's light. The universe exploded. A surge of power tore through Kyle, not pain, not heat, but everything. Every memory the Rememberer had ever held. Every ending the Watcher had ever witnessed. Every life, every death, every choice, every possibility. Kyle screamed, not in agony, but in overwhelming understanding. His mind expanded, stretching across galaxies, across time, across the very fabric of existence. He saw the birth of stars, the collapse of civilizations, the quiet moments between breaths that defined entire species. He saw himself, not one version, but all versions, merging, dissolving, converging into a single, coherent truth. The Rememberer's voice echoed inside him. "Do not resist. Let the memories flow." The Watcher's voice followed, deep and steady. Do not cling. Let the endings pass. Kale felt himself unraveling, not dying, but transforming. His body dissolved into light. His thoughts dissolved into memory. His soul dissolved into meaning. He was no longer Kyle. He was every Kale. He was every life he had touched. He was every story he had carried. He was the Ember. He was the Rememberer. He was the Watcher. He was something new. The light faded. The darkness softened. The fractures sealed one by one, their jagged edges smoothing into gentle ripples of possibility. The sky reformed, stars reigniting like sparks from a cosmic forge. Where Kale had stood, a new being hovered, neither human nor god, neither shadow nor light. A figure woven from memory and meaning, a presence that radiated calm, purpose, and quiet strength. The Rememberer's voice whispered from within him, not separate, but part of him. You are the one who remembers. The Watcher's voice followed, softer than it had ever been. You are the one who releases. Kyle, or what had once been Kale, spoke with a voice that echoed across galaxies. I am the Curator. The universe trembled, not in fear, but in recognition. The Curator raised a hand. A wave of golden fire swept across the cosmos, stabilizing timelines, healing fractures, restoring balance. Stars brightened, worlds aligned. The forgotten dissolved peacefully into the memories from which they came. The Curator whispered, "Let the universe live." And it did. The Rememberer's form appeared beside the Curator, faint, translucent, fading. Kale, it whispered, you have surpassed me. The Curator turned. I am not Kale anymore. The Rememberer smiled, a soft, bitter-sweet smile. And yet, you are. The Watcher appeared on the other side, its presence smaller now, quieter, no longer a looming shadow, but a weary guardian ready to rest. You have taken my burden, it said. I am released. The Curator bowed its head. Thank you for carrying it for so long. The Watcher's eyes dimmed. Endings are not failures. They are completions. The Rememberer drifted closer. And memories are not chains. They are guides. The Curator reached out, touching both of them gently. Rest, it said. The Rememberer dissolved into a swirl of starlight, returning to the memories it had once carried. The Watcher faded into the darkness, its final whisper echoing softly. When the story is done, remember me. And then it was gone. The Curator floated alone in the newborn cosmos. Not lonely, not afraid, simply present. It raised its hand, and the ember, now part of its very essence, flared with gentle light. The Curator spoke, its voice carrying across the universe. Let memory guide. Let meaning endure. Stars brightened in response. Worlds stirred. Life breathed. The universe exhaled. And the Curator began its eternal walk through creation, not as a god, not as a human, but as the guardian of all that had ever been and all that would ever be. The universe was quiet, not silent. Silence was the absence of sound, the absence of life. This was something else, a quiet that felt full, a quiet that felt alive, a quiet that felt like the moment after a storm, when the world holds still to understand what has changed. The Curator drifted through the newborn cosmos, its form shimmering with threads of memory and meaning. It had no fixed shape, sometimes a silhouette of light, sometimes a constellation, sometimes a ripple of golden fire. It was not bound by form because it was not bound by identity. It was not Kale, and yet it was. Fragments of Kale's voice echoed within it, like distant stars whispering across the void. Keep going. Don't quit. Meaning matters. The curator paused, hovering above a newly stabilized star. The star pulsed gently, as though greeting it. The curator extended a hand, or something like a hand, and brushed the star's surface. A ripple of warmth flowed through it. You are steady now, the curator said, its voice layered with echoes. Kyle's tone, the rememberer's cadence, the watcher's depth. The star brightened in response. The curator drifted onward. As it moved through the cosmos, memories flowed through the curator like rivers of light. A child laughing on a world that no longer existed. A warrior dying to protect a stranger. A mother whispering a lullaby to a newborn. A civilization discovering fire. A species watching its sun rise for the first time. A species watching its son die for the last time. The curator felt them all, not as burdens, but as threads in a tapestry. Meaning, it whispered, is not weight. It is connection. But beneath the harmony of memory, a faint ache pulsed, a remnant of something human, a voice. Kyle's voice. Did I do the right thing? The curator paused. It did not answer, because the question was not meant for it. It was meant for the universe. A flicker of movement caught the curator's attention. A small vessel drifted through space, a fragile craft of metal and hope, its engines sputtering. Inside, a lone pilot struggled with failing systems. The curator approached, its presence gentle. The pilot, a young woman with dark hair and tired eyes, looked up as her console flickered. What is that? The curator dimmed its light, taking on a more familiar shape, a humanoid silhouette glowing softly. Do not be afraid, it said. The pilot's breath caught. Are you a god? The curator considered the question. I am a guardian, it said. A guide. The pilot laughed weakly. Well, guide me out of this mess, then. My engines are dead. The curator extended a hand. A thread of golden light flowed from its palm, weaving through the ship's systems. The engines hummed back to life. The pilot stared in awe. How did you... Memory, the curator said simply. I remember how your people built this vessel. I remember how to repair it. The pilot blinked. You remember everything? The curator nodded. Everything that matters. The pilot hesitated. And what matters? The curator smiled. A soft, human smile. Life. The pilot swallowed. Who are you? The curator paused. For a moment, Kale's voice echoed within it. I am Kale. But that was no longer true. I am the curator, it said, the one who remembers so others may live. The pilot whispered, Thank you. The curator inclined its head. Go, your story continues. The ship drifted away, engines steady. The curator watched it until it vanished into the starlight. Alone again, the curator drifted through the void. A faint whisper stirred within it, a memory, a fragment, a ghost. You did good. The curator closed its eyes, or something like eyes. Kyle, it whispered, are you still here? Silence. Then, a warmth like a hand on its shoulder. Not a voice, not a presence, just a feeling, a reminder, a memory. The curator smiled. I will carry you, it said softly, not as a burden, as a guide. The warmth faded, but the feeling remained. The curator turned its gaze to the horizon of space, a vast expanse of stars, worlds, and possibilities. It raised its hand, Golden light flowed outward, weaving through the cosmos like threads of fate, stabilizing, healing, guiding, not controlling, not commanding, simply remembering. Let memory guide, the curator whispered. Let meaning endure. The universe responded, stars brightening, worlds stirring, life breathing. The curator drifted onward, beginning its eternal walk through creation, not as a god, not as a man, but as the guardian of all stories, the one who remembers, the one who releases, the one who ensures the universe never collapses under the weight of its own past again. The curator. The universe was reborn, not in fire, not in chaos, not in the violent eruption of a new Big Bang, but in memory. A soft, golden glow rippled across the cosmos, weaving through galaxies like threads of light. Stars brightened as though waking from a long sleep. Worlds stirred. Nebulae shimmered with renewed color. Life, in all its forms, breathed again. And above it all, drifting through the vastness like a quiet guardian, moved the curator. On a distant world, a world of silver forests and sapphire seas, a group of children gathered around a crackling fire. The flames danced in shades of blue and gold, casting long shadows across the clearing. An elder sat before them, wrapped in a cloak woven from starlight. Her eyes shimmered with the wisdom of ages. "Tell us the story," one child whispered. "Yes," another said, "the story of the last human." The elder smiled, a soft, knowing smile. "Very well," she said, "but remember, this is not just a story, it is a memory." The children leaned closer. The elder began. "Long ago," she said, "when the stars dimmed and the long night deepened, the universe faced its end." The children gasped softly. "A great being called the Watcher awakened," the elder continued. "It sought to release the universe from suffering, to end all things." A child frowned. "Why would it do that?" "Because even gods grow weary," the elder said gently. "Even the universe grows tired." She continued. But there was one who refused to let the story end. A human named Kale, the last bearer of the ember. The children whispered the name like a sacred word. "Kale stood between gods," the elder said. "Between the Watcher, who sought release, and the Rememberer, who preserved all memory." Another child asked, "What did Kale choose?" The elder's eyes softened. "He chose meaning." Far above the world, the curator drifted through the stars. It paused beside a young sun, watching solar flares dance across its surface. The star pulsed with gratitude, not in words, but in warmth. The curator whispered, "You are steady now." It moved on. A dying world caught its attention, a planet whose atmosphere had thinned, whose oceans had dried. The curator extended a hand, weaving threads of memory into the planet's core. The world shuddered. Clouds formed, rain fell, life stirred. The curator whispered, "Your story continues." It moved on. A nebula swirled nearby, birthing new stars. The curator watched, silent and reverent. "Creation remembers itself," it murmured. And it moved on. Back on the world of silver forests, the children leaned closer to the elder. "Where is Kale now?" one asked. The elder looked up at the sky where a faint shimmer drifted between the stars. "He walks the universe," she said, "not as a god, not as a man, as the curator, the one who remembers, so we may live." A child whispered, "Does he watch us?" The elder nodded. "He watches all life, not to judge, not to command, but to guide." Another child asked, "Is he lonely?" The elder paused. A soft breeze rustled the silver leaves. No, she said at last, because he carries all of us, every memory, every story, every life. The children fell silent, awed. The curator drifted through a quiet region of space, a place untouched by stars, where darkness stretched like an endless ocean. Here, in the stillness, it paused. A faint warmth stirred within it. A memory, a fragment, a whisper. Kyle's voice. You did good. The curator closed its eyes, or something like eyes. I hope so, it whispered. Another memory surfaced. The rememberer's gentle tone. Meaning is not weight, it is connection. The curator smiled. Yes, it said softly. Connection. It raised its hand. Golden light flowed outward, weaving through the darkness, creating a new star, small but bright. A beacon, a reminder, a promise. The elder's voice softened as she reached the end of the tale. Remember, children, she said, the universe does not endure because it is strong. It endures because it remembers. A child asked, What does it remember? The elder smiled. Us, she said. All of us. She pointed to the sky. And as long as the curator walks the stars, no story is ever truly lost. The children gazed upward, eyes wide with wonder. Above them, the faint shimmer drifted across the heavens, a thread of golden light weaving through the night. The curator, the last human, the first guardian, the one who remembers. The curator drifted onward, its presence gentle, its purpose clear. It did not rule, it did not command, it did not demand worship. It simply remembered, and in remembering, it gave the universe something it had never truly had before. A future shaped not by fear, not by repetition, not by oblivion, but by meaning. The curator whispered into the starlight, Let the story continue. And the universe answered,